Hey guys, I'm going to try to make a quick video here of a recent modification that I did to my flat platen on my no-weld grinder. And this is a ceramic glass platen backer that I installed. And I just want to go over some quick details. I may make another video kind of discussing some general concepts of platen backers, maybe a little more details about this particular material and application. But for now I just want to make a quick video just kind of going over the major points of installation as well as maybe sourcing these. As for where I got mine, most major knife suppliers tend to be carrying these days, typically in 2-inch widths to fit the more common platen sizes for the 2x72 or 2x48 grinders. And then they have various lengths, usually anywhere from 6 to 10 or 12 inches, if I recall. Some places will custom cut these for you for longer or shorter platens, or maybe wider or narrower ones. I have heard of guys ordering just a full piece of glass that you would put on your fireplace door and then cutting that down themselves using basic glass cutting procedures, or maybe even more effectively a wet tile saw, as this is ceramic based, so it will cut quite easily on a wet saw from what I understand. You can also grind this much similar to hardened steel. It does cut a little bit slower, and it may wear your belts down as well, but you can shape it using metal cutting belts, preferably a ceramic belt. I used a 60 grit on mine, just around the top edge a little bit. But as far as how it came directly from where I purchased mine, it was basically ready to go. The edges were pretty soft. While they are at 90 degrees, they aren't very sharp at all. And I just rounded this to kind of soften it up on the top where the belt was coming over, just to reduce any possible wear there and make that transition a little easier. As for where I got mine from Tracy Mickley at usa.knifemaker.com. He's got several lengths of the 2-inch width in stock, and incidentally he also does have a small tutorial at the bottom of the page where you can click to purchase this, showing how he installs his. Slightly different than how I did mine, but similarly effective nonetheless. This is just going to be one way to do it based on various research I've done. In my opinion, it's a better way to do it, and I may go over some of those points if I have time as to why I feel that way. But the basic installation is relatively simple. The most important point, I'll go ahead and get out of the way right now. You absolutely, in my opinion, must make a ledge for this to rest on. There are guys who have done it without, with success, but there's probably as many, if not more, who have done this without the ledge with failure. And regardless of how good you think your epoxies or your space-age polymers might be, that hold this glass in place, they can and do fail for one reason or another. And when that happens, this piece will quickly slide down in between the belt and your rollers, whether it's a contact wheel or an idler wheel. And then it will basically explode, and with the forces at work, the rotation of the belt, etc., there's a very good chance that those extremely sharp pieces will be headed towards your face and body. And at the very least, you could suffer some minor abrasions, minor cuts. At the most, you could suffer blindness, depending on whether or not you're wearing the appropriate protective equipment. So rather than take that risk, and considering how easy, quickly, and cheap these ledges can be made, I really don't see any reason to avoid it. Some guys simply tap some screws, whether small or larger, from the back of the platen or into the face, and they'll run them just shy of the face of this glass and use that as a ledge. I've heard of guys using one screw, probably two is better, just to give it some more surface area there. Some guys also just weld a small piece either to the face or the underside of their platen that sticks out a little bit. Pretty much anything that will create a ledge will be adequate as long as it will stay in place. And what I did for mine, I simply used a piece of 3/4 inch flat stock. That's an 1/8 inch wide, or 1/8 inch thick rather. It's just a little bit under the thickness of my glass, so that's a very adequate ledge. And I did, which is probably somewhat important, square this edge up just so that those would fully mate across the thickness of this flat stock. As it comes from the factory, this is slightly rounded on the steel here, tapered a little bit. So I didn't want any chances that even if this did come loose, that it could still rotate forward a little bit. As far as how I secured the flat stock, I simply used 2/4 inch bolts that I drilled and tapped to the face here, ran them through, cut the heads off, sanded everything flush, and we were good to go. Shouldn't be any problems with longevity here. This should last for the life of the platen. As far as the adhesion, there are various methods you can use, various types of epoxies, polymers, adhesives. I've heard of guys using anything from 5-minute epoxy to silicone to contact cement. I decided to use something a little easier to remove if I ever needed to. I simply used an exterior grade double-sided carpet tape. Brands probably aren't super important. You just want to make sure that it's a tough tape that adheres well. Especially if you're in a colder climate, you may want to pre-warm the pieces just to soften up the tackiness of the glue a little bit, and you will get better contact overall. As far as how I did mine, I simply applied a piece to both the back side of the glass and the front side of the platen. So I have two pieces that I rubbed on extremely well, very evenly, got full contact on both, and then I simply stuck the two pieces together and again gave even pressure down the whole length, made sure there was good adhesion, good contact. And realistically, I could probably pull on this as hard as I want, and this isn't coming off very easily at all. I may actually pull the grinder off the bench before this comes loose. I'm really not sure. As far as the circle here, in case you're wondering, that's simply where I had a hole drilled and tapped to attach my mild steel platen to the bracket here. As far as the part that you glue the glass or adhere the glass to, that's not super important. You just want it to be long enough to fully contact the whole length of the glass, as well as long enough to have a part for your ledge. And also you want the platen itself that you're adhering this to be as flat as possible. As the glass comes, it is extremely, extremely flat. And any variances in the platen that don't match up with the flatness can potentially cause stressors in the future, depending on how you push this into the epoxy or the tape. And then when you're grinding, as you're pushing on this, if it doesn't have full contact in the back against the flat platen, it could flex, it could crack, and destruct on you a little bit. So I did end up draw filing this mild steel a little bit just to flatten it out, as this does not come perfectly flat by any means from the mill. If you have access to a surface grinder or a milling machine, that's even better. So basically you just want to make sure everything's secure, everything's lined up and square, and make sure everything's adhered. Full contact across the full face and very solidly. So that's basically the installation. I may make a separate video, maybe going over some more details, some more considerations. So definitely stay tuned for that. I just wanted to go over kind of the basic installation and some considerations to be made. My 10 minutes have quickly dissolved. So I will end this video and stay tuned for the next one.